All right. Speeding up anomalies, guys. Inline rotation surface, ready to stand the top rotation of energized screens. It's all direct locations of panels. Now we understand the solar generations. All right, it's really understand your track resistance, but at a higher level. The positions of platforms is putting the spacing lines in a 4,000 line setting. That puts all calculations of screen locations. What that means in position of routers and routers and like into your settings, your sun and your moon, this is where it comes in the eclipse. The actual eclipse lines, the calculation line screen is going to morph its position of dimensional sails. 4,000 lines of tractions and 14,000 lines of tractions. Now, this is provision cycles where we have to come into all line center locations of bandwidth over pi. This is streaming your line communications to your settings, all right? 4 line provision lines: Jupiter, Mercury, okay, Pluto, okay, and Saturn. 4 signal line screens, 5 direct signals into barcode, 1 time center. Now, in position locations, the calculation lines, a high calculation system, the position of graph calculations, the spacing lines is now energized. Their position at the top rotation of green lines comes in habitation zones, which is 12 lines of measure. The team lines into calculation line screen location has a barcode time sequence in a 12 line center locations into calculation line conditions. That puts lines ascending at 20 line rotation centers, 4 over track, 24 line communication graph calculation screens and inhibitors over pi. The energized lines, the command centers, the line rotation settings. So in position location to its system, all right? Pay attention now. The high calculation, your 12 line graphs and spacing lines that their planets in high calculation is going to morph into one. Let me say it again, morph into one. 12 foundation graphs morph into one into your position lines of spiritual line screens, into application modification line calculation setting to your sim. Sim comes in, all calculation line to its system line condition setting, its computer line connected to its balance. Finds the correlation line calculation, puts position lines in spectrum calculation. Directing calculation modification is spectrums. Now, direct lines of altitude and longitude and latitude is really standard coordinates of calculations. You're going to have Pluto lines arising, you're going to have Jupiter lines arising, you're going to have Mercury lines arising, and you're going to have Saturn lines arising. Okay, 4 lines of rising communication lines, energized communication lines coming into your line position locations, 4,000 air and 14,000 air. So they're going to be in real time in set position. Okay, now the archetypes come in line communication setting, they're going to have energized line screens. Now that position of its pulsar puts position line connections, circulation rotation lines, circular line rotation in a line position as program. The line communications can set up box line, plasma screen locations, 2 lines of tracks, triangulation line conditions, program and line calculation of probing, and 2 and 4 line rotation. Directing modification screens and adjusting is really to understand how to formulate communication settings in the location of your settings to your cells. Your cells are morphing right now. Your position lines a high calculation line screen into your atoms and your molecules is understanding the surfacing engine to its line condition that's programming your line communication, your compute screens. It's directing all calculation your quantum line connection setting. Your body is adjusting all formations, right? So when your planets get into position, they're going to morph into 1 line cycle. Now that location setting, we have a triangulation split that sets a new particle extreme lines in calculation to all calculation when it comes into your accelerators. Now accelerator is understanding connection settings. So they're going to have interstellar modes in 1 track line. So you have to get into the adjustments, okay, to your body frames. Your cells are basically redividing lines and communication of wall connectors. It's connection to its plasmesium wall centers. A plasmesium wall center is a plasmesium line force. It positions your planet line cycles. It centralizes communication. So each planet is going to morph into its own dimensional sail. It has to get in platitude line screen into your air in line position. This basically gets you in a program line condition, your 12 DNA line conditions. It formulates line position of its calculations. So we got an octahedron line setting. We have a plasma force line channel. We have a correlation calculation, and we have an information panels to each line condition of each cell. Each cell has a line setting. Now it has a universal location, has 1 center. The central coordinate setting line connection your inhibitors, the team's going to go through the graph calculation of the QR codes. Now this is a quantum line bit in line condition setting, okay? So it's kind of like understanding how to use your quantum self to understand your quantum bits or anything, the qubits or anything, the microbits, or, you know, your connections to your alpha channels, line connections to your data waves, your delta waves, your program settings, your time streams, your time locks, your time calculations, your time interference, your time divisions. Now, all in line rotation to its position, very complicated stuff. Once your planets rotate and once they get in position to the area of where you are, there's essential line connections, right? You start with one line setting to 12, right? 0 is in correlation to the ground setting. So that implements the system to a new program setting. So the planet line screen, in-line position locations, is going to be in all levels of second generation. Second generation in real time, okay? Now, you have to understand the formation what General's doing through all line settings when it comes into the Rainbow Children. Rainbow Children, connections to the Wave Showers, and the Rainbow Warriors. Now, in position location of the second generation line setting, you understand each planet has a sector line of a cosmic line interference that has a constellation path that center lines its communications of data processing. Okay, this opens up new panels of its second generation into real time. Each planet is going to have a structure light. That structure light sets the inhibitors and line connection setting to recharge in species, and all levels are remote and team center. Okay, very complicated stuff. Okay, all right, so let's get in position line centers and get ready in calculations. All right, so gender is going to be off grid. I'm on the set location of AK. If you have any questions or comments, feel free. I'll keep informed line conditions if you want to book a one-on-one. You have to wait till next week in location setting travels. All right, so let's get into modification lines as square roots. So the triangulation lines that come into particle line screens. Setting line communication lines, 3 lines, 4 and 5 set locations. All right, planet 1, planet 2, planet 3, planet 4, circulation and line conditions setting and programs. Now, the center core system is a center line connections, center line center. Pets position lines are all calculations to its system. Now, the triangulation line splits the anomalies and line rotation centers and set location. Now, directing lines modification comes in a center core that center lines and line rotation centered to a capsule. Line setting in travel and position to its operation. Setting calculation of line settings, your 12 lines of measures, puts lines of 12 cycles into 24 line cycles. In lines of species and lines of team. Okay, 12 lines of provision, 24 lines of provision. Sectors, vectors, and quadrants. Now, the line condition of team is going to be a quadrant level D. That plasma line screen high interference has an energy wash screen. Sets lines of high calculation line screens and high center interference, indirect signals, in solar generation screen locations, adaptations, and calculation. Process line centers really understand how it surfaces in position location calculations. Complicated stuff, isn't it? To understand what's going on with your planets. Each dimensional planet has to have a rotor and router and line rotation. Direct modifications in 2, 3, and 4 cycles as locations. Generation line screens, optical systems, primal line units into correlation. Okay? Center lines of communication cross line screens as set locations. Okay? Sets lines of communications and settings. Sonar 1, 2, and 3, and 4 in set location. All line centers, center lines it splits. And direct signals, okay? So you got planet line rotation of Jupiter, setting communication setting, a new surfacing engine and program set location. Direct lines of Pluto, Pluto lines its direct signals in 1 cross line connections. Calculation of Mercury, line rotates the battery line, surface line, crossing line screen at set location. Position lines of calculation lines of Saturn, center lines is communication setting, is solar ground calculation of flash drive interference, and set position of calculations. Okay? That's what's going to happen. Okay, they know exactly what's happening with Mercury, your battery and line settings, and relay programs. Know what's happening with your Saturn, your flash drive interference, your Pluto security line division locations, and all calculation. All right. Planet location lines has a quarter line screen that sets lines communications to all inhibitors over pi. That's lines of communication setting all line position locations of Neptune. Neptune crosses line screen as solar generator screen locations. Added platforms of communication line centers of 4 platforms in a line setting and track location. Crossing line symbols is understand how the sun comes in and the moon comes in its own dimensional line screen. Opens all signals modification its own dimensional sail that comes in the eye spectrum light calculation setting and all calculated to its position of its program. Its new command center. Okay, that's where we're all coming into, right? Wiping screens, line calculation setting, and line rotation cycles, and high traction. Okay? The command center. Okay? So what you understand, the actual DNA planet, the line rotation cycles, is setting up its own space command system. Really understand how you put 12 planets in one cycle, one generation screen location, and solar track locations into 4 and 14,000 lines of air. Okay, so each planet is coming in its own command center. It's coming in its own capsule location. It's coming in its own foundation graph calculation information cycles in set location. Okay. All right, so now you know exactly what's going on with that locations. Travel mechanism line screen is really understand how to set up one line graph, 2 line provisions, 3 cycles, and 4 tractions. Now, 3 line cycles, 2 lines of high interference, levels lines of correlations of 4. So it's line connections of 14,000 line settings. We got a square roots and triangulation line connections into Fibonacci line screen as allocation. Direct lines of panels, dimensional line, solar line, and high interference, solar graph calculations, solar generation lines, and line condition setting, the solar sail. Position lines of calculations, direct lines of projection, sun, set locations of the moon, kaleidoscope, inline rotation, surface, and position. Now, all lines setting into Jupiter. See Jupiter there? Routing and routering in a line center is center core. Now, Pluto comes in line setting. It lines its set location line conditions. Add the allocate line screen into triangulation line splits in position to a flux capacitor line setting, star mechanism line screen, and a box frame in set locations. Now, the direct panels comes in as center core setting, sets up a flywheel and direct signals as set locations. Directing modifications. This is where you have to come into the electronic location, your alphabetic line screen, locations, adaptations, calculation of platforms, communication lines of system. Direct lines of modification. Okay, all through calculation. All right. See the intelligence line? See the intelligence? Right there. See? Know exactly how to set up phase correction of time centers when it comes into your future adaptation line conditions. So the platitude, when the planets are ready to go in line positions, they separate in set locations. When they separate, they set up their particle line screen locations in their adaptation cycles. That positions through their algorithms, sets course lines of settings. So it comes into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay? So your planets are doing this. Okay? All in setting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's what they're doing right now. Boom. They're all doing that right now. So the central line communication line centers, they separate 1, separate 2, cross line 3, sets lines of 4, inlines energetic graph line. So your planets are creating solar graph calculation of skynets. This puts your inhibitors lines of pi and line rotations, putting up sky grid line, screen line conditions to your waving cycles into solar generation screen locations. 4 inhibitors, 5 orb correlation, 6 lines of setting, 7 calculation line screen interference and trap position locations, creating lines of skyline grids in solar panels and communication line settings in solar streams at set location. Okay? So it's setting up the box line, frame line, direct signal location graph calculations. So once it comes in inhibitors over pi, the central core center, setting line communication setting, each planet is going to have a core setting. So each planet in position location is going to go into crop circles to line settings and where you are in adaptation. Okay? Right here. So we have 1, 2 lines of 3, 3 lines of 4, 4 lines of 6, 6 lines of 8, and 2 lines of line conditions at levels of Pluto and track locations. Crop circles and line conditions of 4,000 line air. So we have a graphical line setting that sets Mother Earth. Now Mother Earth is going to core her track setting and graphical screen settings. This allocates position of time centers, put a new Argo location setting to your planet's surface. Wherever you are in line condition setting, conscious of memory, or subterranean or anything that line position, you're going to have a core line setting position to your solar sails. You have to understand the connection lines of dimensional and solar connection to your system and position of each planet in set locations to its crop circles. Okay? Formation location, in line conditions, intelligence, and face recognition. See? All right, so that's what's going to happen to your planets. They're going to set up solar screens. They're going to set up solar panels. They're going to set up bridge line centers. They're going to set up command centers in your air, 4,000 line setting. So it's going to be much easier so they can tether across locations when you go to high line position to you're aware of conscious line connections. Future adaptation of routers and routers sets communication in your settings and all calculations, right? Starts with the eclipse. That's what the eclipse is. It's putting all 12 planets in one cycle. All right, so the foundation graph line, once it understands the solar line direct signal locations, you come in your fractals of yourself, your own fields. The fields line position locations of the box system and travels. So the box lines comes data line settings and high calculation setting in position of 3. So line setting is solar sail and dimensional sail and line center and set positions calculation. So we go into line splits. Now line rotation service and calculation screen locations. Directing lines of panels, 4 lines of provision, 3 lines of cycles, bodies of water, 7 lines of track in line conditions of 5, 7 equals lines of 5, 5 equals lines of 2, line conditions of metric meters, memory line rotations into modification line spectral lights, into computations line rotation centering, and CPU line units and set location. Now, modification screen lines, a direct signal, is a platitude line setting. It allocates line screens and set locations. Now, the panel line rotation has 1 split lines of anomaly that has to understand, each planet has to understand its settings, where it is in its information line cycles and set locations. Once it gets balanced, the planet line rotators, okay, in line position goes in a 45-degree angle. Okay, see the planets? They come in line cycles. Okay, so they're coming in provision line cycle line conditions, right? Setting provision lines in a 4,000 and 14,000. So they're coming towards lines of space and time sector. Vectors and quads and line setting, quadrant location levels, and high position in calculation. Okay? So then we get the archetypes. The archetype spin cycles, line setting location, your settings of face recognition, time centers of calculation. All right, so in line setting, you have to really understand how it comes into some information line cycles. Directing line, so we got a 7-2 line rotation in set calculations, and we got 16,000 line screens, clocking line conditions settings, metric meters, modifications into memory and line setting. Direct modification acceleration sets lines of an A track, balance line set locations into DX line in line condition XD 1000 line 1 frame. Direct calculation lines a 2 line frame. Circulation, rotation, surface, line position of balance, and line condition setting as center calculation. All right, so center position location line grounds is understand how to use line conditions of Mother Earth in a new core setting location, Mother Earth. Direct calculation line setting high center lines position location circulation rotates the surface and line direct signals as center core set location. Now, direct lines of communication is understanding the magnetic high line setting that sets up data highways in line rotation and set position of 4,000 lines and 14,000 locations. So you have to understand what's going on now, setting up new structures, new structural line divisions in platitude line interference location near settings. All through platitude lines of ground settings, clock line center location system. Also the clockings in line centers of 4,000 and 14,000 line is going to follow you wherever you go, right? But the platitude line screen location of your planets are now morphing into one line cycle. Eye receptors, right over left, left or right. This plasma line set screens, sets lines of magnetic high wave information, all positions programmed instead of correlation line conditions, cerebros, in direct signals of modification. Okay? All right. How's everybody doing so far? Seeing the line coming into the formation of my avatar under the same new construct. Yeah, that's it. So knowing exactly, because you guys are already there. Remember, everything happens at 6 a.m. Everything happens at 6 a.m. It's a high information location. So it's all about putting timeline sectors in each planet location in your reactors. So it has a position location taking you out of reactions into response. Okay? That's what it is. It's taking the species out of reaction into response. You become your first responders, right? 4,000 lines setting location of response, directions out of reaction, putting line communication acceleration, Mach lines, calculations information, direct lines calculation of high centers of planets, into location lines at 12 line signals and set location. Okay? So we all have to understand how this all works now, guys. This gives a lot of communication lines of balance to understand what's going on through your settings. Okay? But it's incredible when you go through all communication lines of travels off the graph calculations. So hopefully you get a better understanding of what's going on with your planets now and what they're doing. They're setting up energetic lines, sky grids, sky lines, sky interference, graph calculation lines, data positions, all process line connections. Everything is done by itself. So the planet itself creates its own bridge. Now, when you get into the bridge line center, we come into line connections across lines. This is where Endo comes in through towers communications. Tower communication line screens, direct modification settings and high calculations, 2 points of track lines and 6 line connection. Okay. Center lines of highest interference. Asgard. Okay, Asgard here in line condition, right? So 3 central line centers, split the anomalies into 3 line conditions. Okay, XD1000 comes in a 4-line measure. Okay, box line rotations. Okay, so everything works inside line. So it's getting everybody out of box, triangulation, triangulation, box. Now the line center, the center core changes the flywheel attract location, right? Platitudes line centers. So your planets are going into another dimension of space modulation. Okay, high generation screens, platitude lines of Manua lines into 5-line cycles, 6-line provision, 2 tractions. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, and 12, and 0-line position of point centers of track location of 1, 1, 1 in line centers. Species lines has to understand 1, 1, 1 now because it's all line center location is summer, spring, winter, and fall. Puts position on each planet in 12-line ground lines. Sets lines of communication centers and track location in 1 position. Okay. All right. So once you get in that line condition setting, you come into air coolants. A coolant line screen locations for your ecosystems, energy, collaboration, operation. Okay. So it takes you out of the eagle line screen, right? So there's no position line interference. There's no calculation to its setting. The position lines of its platform changes all levels of its energy, of its communication, of its operation cycles. Platitude line rotation, box lines, box lines, box lines, and high calculation, right? See it? All right. Data streams and line connection setting, okay? Process of communication to your 12 planets, equals lines of foundation, square roots, solar sails, and line set locations in compute screen. Sets provisions. So you guys come in direction of time centers. So what that means now, the species line is in a half-line cycle. They're in the particle accelerated, another habitation zone. They're coming into the habitation zones. They got to get balanced line screen lines. So there's 6 over lines of pi, 7 line provisions, 8 lines of triangulation, 9 position travels, 10 line correlation setting, line condition high center for ether, core, line rotation cycles, connection lines at all lines of high interference, space lines, modulation, screen locations, modification, direct lines of fabric of space, line condition of 0, position equals lines of 12, line position of 24, 48, 72, and line centers of 144, track location, inset connections. Okay. So, yeah, now you understand a little bit more what's going on through your line screens, all through information line cycles and set location, how this is all set up. Okay. So now you understand what that means. You know, what does that mean with the eclipse? What does all it can do? Well, it's putting all your planets and your sun and your moon morphed into 1, so it can go where it needs to go. So it has a 2-line center. So we added lines, graph lines, 0-line rotation, and 2-line positions, 3 weather lines, 2 weather lines, calculation of 1-line weather, line rotations, north line, box line settings, north line, east, coordinates, lines of position, Jupiter calculations. So we add the lines of calculations. Your screen location lines comes in north, east, south, and teleportation. North, east, south, and teleportation, right? Graphs calculation lines, box line rotations in north, east, west, and south. Okay, calculation lines, center core lines, torical fields. So you're no longer in circulation rotation now in position locations and setting. Okay, from that to this. Okay, taking out of structure line division lines of 3 cross line screens, sets position location. Okay, center core line settings, high track locations, 12 planets, 12 divisions, 12 locations, and 12 grounds. Okay, so we got box frame. Okay, all through information cycles. Now, direct lines of XT1000 line signatures, 1-line pattern, sets lines of 2-line rotation surface, 3 direct signals and set locations. All right, platitude screen, center correlation. Right, mapping sequence lines. So the line setters of spectrum lines, cross line settings, and high calculations. Point lines of center, solar setting, and line conditions. So it's really understanding how to formulate lines of 0 grounds and a mapping sequence of pi. Okay, how this is all set up through its perimeters and parameters in line conditions, skyline grids, in line conditions setting, and solar attraction. That's that design. Okay. So I just want you to understand how this is all set up. So it's a plasma screen now, right? So you're going to see general and the face recognition, 4,000, 12,000, 18,000, 20,000. So every time you platitude line settings, your planets are going to go with you and your sun and the moon. So now they know how to morph. They know how to get in line positions to your solar direct signals. That takes them out of the old programs into new line screen. That puts a line connection setting. So you're going to see general and all information of face recognition to each atmosphere line setting in fractals over correlation. Now that puts your factors in line connection setting into your protons. Protons neutralize the corresponding electrons. Electrons set location to its atoms. Atom line circulates, rotates, and cycles. Sets lines of barometers and perimeters in the line condition setting, expected correlation line conditions to graph calculation. Okay? All right. And so it's important you understand how this all works in location setting of travels. Because you got two lines of 1 equals lines of 2. Two lines of rotations, Pluto and line signal. Okay? Clocking system, center line setting and set position. Now, check this out. Because your planets are now in 12 line cycles in lines of solar sails and line rotation surface, so it has line conditions, lights, shades, and shadows, inline rotations in both sectors and line conditions apply. So really interesting now because your astral projections are now line signaling. You got beacon lights and core settings into your magnetic high line setting, your cerebral line set location of setting. Positions of platform, one split, okay? Center lines in your DNA lines of 2 patterns and line centers of 3 lines. Rotate the cycles, routers and routers, and line settings. Like a spring going up in line position of direct signals at that location. Okay, complicated stuff, right? So we get to the location lines. We platted to the lines that crop circles. Each line has a position lines, a core setting. So your 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 air, there's new platitude lines, send location of crop circles to each correlation setting. Okay? XT1000 comes in, scans lines of 1, scans lines of 2, scans lines of 3, scans lines of 4 in position. Okay? Modification screens has a signal in the line connections, right? So it line signals in a triangulation line setting over inline rotation surface. Now, inline rotation setting, I know it's complicated what's going on, right? So this is how we platitude line screen locations. Wherever you are in line rotations, you set out a new crop circles. Okay? Taking out the old, bringing in the new. Okay? So we're platitude line. So we're basically putting line setting locations to your elixirs, your connections to your cosmic flames, your cosmic line settings, your cosmic effects, new clocking system, new platitude line settings, new time strips, film strips, projections over a screen, projections over pi, higher correlation line conditions, high track location setting. So wherever you go to higher lines of data and upgrades and downloads and uplinking system, your platitude screen locations and your planets will follow you now, wherever you go. Because there's a foundation tether now that correlates the system location. Your eye receptors will change perceptions over line signal. Your identification line settings, your bodies of water, will set up a plasma line chain that changes line condition setting to its particle system. The particle system line setting opens up all levels of set location of laser settings and track location. Amazing, isn't it? So, all right, so that's all set up. So I'm just showing exactly what's in the process. It's already done, but you're in the process of coming in calculations. 12 lines of 2. We got 11 line screen, and T equals lines of 12 lines of 2, right? Time frequency line screen. Now, we're all timelines all at once now. We're in hours, minutes, and seconds in all settings. Seconds over line, seconds over minutes, seconds over Earth, and seconds over pi, okay? Very complicated stuff because we're in constant communication now in direct signal. So nobody's going to see line settings in position of straight view now. You're going to see a clocking system of an atom rotation. It's that connections, right? So your eye perceptors are changing dimensional line screens. So every time you look in line setting locations, you're going to see all line position of circulation, rotational line connections. So you're no longer going to see this. You're going to see this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this, all at once, all at once, all at once, all at once, okay? So the faster you go, the more the atom line rotates the cycles, sets line position of course. It communicates in a 3-line split in line setting and track locations. Directing modification is solar sails and line rotation, right? See the solar sail? Comes in a full cycle line setting of yin and yang that processes your settings. Directing modifications, XT1000 comes in line connection to its position. Sets lines of communication, router lines, high calculation lines of its moon, in line rotation surface, in line condition. Okay. Point lines of setting, sets lines of circle line rotation as center line of communication of balance in set location. Right? Boom, solar flare. Right? All right, so how's everybody feeling so far? It's amazing what we're coming into, right? Very complicated, isn't it? So I'm just showing you how this is all set up in provision. Okay? How to take out the old and in with the new, right? How to set up new crop circles, new grounds, new operation surface, getting you guys in your holographic screen lines. So new ground lines, high calculation setting to your pixels, or your plasmas, or your hologram screens. Structures of division, applied to screen settings. So the 3 line wires lines its indication. Okay, so this is how you guys are going to see through perception now. Okay, from that to this. Okay, center core setting, the eye receptor. That's the eye slant location, right? Center lines of data streams, but it's in a 2-line waving pattern. Okay, 2 line center locations, planets in one way and planets in direct the other way in line conditions. Positions of point lines of graphs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 platforms and graph calculations. Now, you have to understand how it goes through a box frame. Your theta communication is high channeling. The channeling communication lines of center grounds, center its communication system in primal circuits is that location. Direct modification lines, center coordinates and setting. All lines of balance in line position locations of data streams. Okay? That's it, we're done. It's amazing what we just came into. It's incredible how things are set up. To really understand yourself and really understand how to have yourself in relation, to know exactly how to set up your own engineering of your own set locations, your founders, your builders, your heirs, and really understand how to see through perception and line signals all calculations of computer adaptation. Okay? From this to this. Okay? So, no line signals and line conditions is a straight view anymore. Your perceptions are going through all calculations. That's why they're blurry. So they're just adjusting. That's all they're doing. But I just wanted to show you how powerful it is when you come into graphs, all through your planets, what you're doing through creation, all through intelligence, information screen, right? How it's coming into line sending, line conditions setting to plasma generation, communication, new crop circles and set locations. Okay, how it's coming in out of line center high interference in location setting, your planets, line conditions setting into all calculation. Okay. New algorithms, new set locations, interpretation screen location, adaptation cycles, information line cycles, information panel cycles, information everything through data, process position locations. 13 lines of channels and 3 line connections. 13 line division locations and 3 line settings. 13,000 line connections and quadrants and 3 line rotation. Your direct signal is now in hours, minutes, and seconds now. Okay? Now, space has changed. Space is now in hours, minutes, and seconds. Set lines of the Earth is seconds, minutes, and hours. Hooah. Very confusing, isn't it? Center core setting is hours, minutes, and seconds, right? Space modulation is now hours, minutes, and seconds, which means your planet system is in vortex location in real time in your settings of sectors, vectors, and quads. Okay? But your Earth now is in seconds, minutes, and hours. Okay? It's confusing, right? Modulation setting your particle accelerator line screens. This puts all lines of communication setting your core settings of your Earth in position with location balance and platform communication setting and travel. Okay? The hours, minutes, and seconds sets the flywheel line rotation of the center correlation. The condition of the hours, minutes, and space line sets the planet's lines in real time. Real time, people. Real time. All right? So now you're going to get grounds with your new line centers, your Earth rotation surface in your connection to pixelation, connection to ground lines, high upper line connection setting, your solar connections of your generation screen, which is a solar plex. Right? It's a 4-line rotation cycle now. Sending lines of high calculation screen lines to a 14,000 solar screen into a 4,000 screen. Huge different locations of data screen locations. So inhibitors over pi, center lines of solar direct signals comes into energy lights. Plasma screens lines of platforms in communication setting of program set location. Okay, so you have to really get grounds now, right? Because your body's going to change temperature readings, right? So you're in seconds, minutes, and hours on the Earth. So you got a center core lines H line, which is modification of screen lines and system and line conditions. You got a height line setting and location in metric meters of scales set locations in your system. Cerebral cortex lines, putting you in the avatar of the sim and position in magnetic high information force. That's allocate line settings to 3 capsules in a 45-degree angle in a line condition setting and all levels of operation location, crisscross line conditions in direct signal locations in solar generation and screen locations of data processing. Okay. All right. So it's going to get more confusing now because space now is in hours, minutes, and seconds. Oops. So we have to really understand how this all works now. Hours, minutes, and seconds of space, hour, minute, second location of core, and calculation of the Earth is seconds, minutes, and hours. You got to understand the balance of what's going through fluctuations of screen. So the modification of spacing line gets a better understanding of how to use voice line more into the mind, more into the program, more into the adaptation, more in cycles, more of awareness, more in consciousness in set locations. All right. So there you go. It's all set in connection. Okay. So you can understand how to go through platforms a lot easier now in dimensional lines of space. So the hour line sets the clock line centers, and the hours and minutes and location settings sets the communication of your planets in real time as sector, vector, and coordinates. Okay? Hoo-ah! That's it. We're done. All right. So questions. Oof, I know you guys have a lot of questions. I got to go. Other than that, everything's all set, ready to go in line condition setting. You got your processing, you got all communication data and information system. Questions or comments for a later date? Adios.